Welcome back to Iibs Ias Academy. In the last episode, we were discussing about international relations, Indian foreign policy during the time of Nehru. And in this session, we are going to discuss about the Indian foreign policy and its developments during the time of Lal Bahdur Shastri and Indira Gandhi. So I'm Ashok, Master's graduate from IIT Kharagpur. I have been training UPSC aspirants since the past 6 years. And I'm an author as well. I have written books on science and technology and environment and ecology. You can get it on Amazon and Flipkart. Now I'm working as an assistant professor at Iibs Ias Academy. So this is what we have discussed in the last class. What is international relations, importance of international relations and Indian foreign policy before independence and after independence, and the relevance of non-alignment movement and Panchshil agreement. And now we are going to discuss the phase of Shastri and Indira Gandhi. The previous video link will be given in the description below. Please watch it. So this is what we are going to discuss, and the Lal Bahadur Shastri has served as the Prime Minister immediately after the death of Nehru. So after the Nehru died, so there are very big shoes to fill, and there was an ambiguity in the political administration of India who will be the next Prime Minister. So at that time, Lal Bahadur Shastri has come as the Prime Minister of India, and even though it is a very short, lean period, so there are many developments in the Indian foreign policy. And also, next, the Lal Bahdur Shastri has been succeeded by Indira Gandhi, and Indira Gandhi has been the second longest served Prime Minister of India during the time of 66 to 77 and 80 to 84. So we are going to see the developments that has happened during the period of Lal Bahdur Shastri and Indira Gandhi. The first, Lal Bahdur Shastri, right? So after the Nehru has actually died, the Lal Bahdur Shastri has brought a major change in the emphasis of foreign policy or the international events. So initially, most of the aspects of Indian foreign policy are away from that of India and the geographical frontiers of India. So we have focused on the other countries, whereas the neighbors were much neglected. So whereas Lal Bahadur Shastri has changed that idea, as he has given more emphasis on the immediate neighbors rather than that of the people away from that of India. And he launched massive peace promoting operation the sphere of the foreign affairs with a nuclear disarmament. So when it comes to the nuclear disarmament, in 1964, the China has actually tested its nuclear weapon, even though there was a complete protest against the proliferation of the nuclear weapons. So immediately after they have gone for the nuclear test, there is so much of pressure on India that they have to go nuclear. So during that time, the Lal Bahadur Shastri, even though he has given the directions to the Indian Atomic Agency to go for the nuclear test, but he was mostly passive during the time. So he has imbibed the nuclear disarmament and peaceful settlement of the border disputes. So during his time, we have the disputes across the border with the Pakistan. So there has to be the peaceful settlement of the border disputes. So he has actually looked towards the peaceful settlement and the freedom from the foreign domination and the racial discrimination, economic development through the international cooperation, and the conditions to support the status of peace and progress. So these are the areas where the Shastri doctrine is actually come from. So we'll see the events that has happened during the time of Lal Bahadur Shastri. The first issue and one of the most important issues when it comes to the bilateral relations between India and Pakistan is Run of Kutch. Run of Kutch is the small lake between India and the West Pakistan, right? So West Pakistan. So it was a small lane. As per the international laws, so the lake has to be divided in the central way. Sorry. So the half has to go to the Pakistan, the other half to the India. So whereas India has actually claimed this particular land is the marshy land. So because of the marshy land, we cannot divide as per the center, right? Because the Indian territory is actually losing most of the land. If India will be losing most of the land, so that's why there has been a dispute on the Run of Kutch between India and the Pakistan, and that has thought to be addressed bilaterally through the dialogue. But the Pakistan as well as India did not accept on it, and finally, because of the arbitration, 1/10 of the land that the Pakistan has asked was given to the Pakistan. So that was the Run of Kutch issue, and still the issue is actually proceeding as a bilateral dispute between the India and the Pakistan. So we call the division of the land, right? So as the Thalweg doctrine. That means if there is any territory, if there is any river that is like this, right? So that means based upon the depth, this is the only phase of, this is the only area where you can navigate. So if there is any navigable waters as per the Thalweg doctrine, so that has to be divided in between rather than between the center, rather than towards the center. So you have to divide the water in between, so the navigable waters will come both to India and Pakistan. The Pakistan is claiming that it is a lake, so we should not apply the Thalweg doctrine as per the international law. So it has to be divided in between, and the lake has to be given to the Pakistan. So because the bilateral disputes were not resolved, so the because of the arbitration, 1/10 of the territory was actually given to the Pakistan. That was the run of Kutch issue that has happened immediately after Lal Bahadur Shastri has come as a prime minister, and during the period of the Lal Bahadur Shastri, the India was actually seen as a weak nation. So because of this, the India was actually put a burden upon the many frontiers. The next one, see, as you can see here, the perception of weak India continued during the time of the Lal Bahadur Shastri. In the meanwhile, the China has exploded the nuclear bomb in October 1964 without India reacting to it immediately. India did not react to it, but instead of the non-alignment conference that has met in the Cairo in 1964, they have sent a delegation to the Beijing that it should not go for the nuclear proliferation or the test of the nuclear weapons, but they have refused the delegation. And immediately after that China issue, we have got another issue with the Pakistan, because the continued perception that India is weak during the time of Lal Bahadur Shastri. Because of that, in 1965, and the modus operandi during the time of 1965 was same that of before 1947. So seeking the support of the Kashmiris against India. So, so immediately after that, in 1965, the war with the Pakistan, and we have moved and we have occupied the territories, few territories that were occupied previously by the Pakistan. And during that particular time, so the Russia has actually come to address the bilateral issues or to negotiate the peace between India and the Pakistan. And both the countries were actually invited to the Russia, to the Tashkent. So we call it Tashkent Declaration or the Tashkent Agreement. That has happened in 1966. During the time of this, both in towards the India and the Pakistan, the USA wanted to play a vital role in mediating the differences, and as well as the Russia, right? And during this period of time, so we were aligned to that of the Russia rather than that of the America. And under this agreement, this is the most important thing. India has given the territories that were captured by the army. So that's why Lal Bahadur Shastri has come up with great criticism for the Indian opposition parties. So because all the occupied territories were given back. So with utmost difficulty, the Tashkent Declaration has been successful and the peace has been progressed between the two territories. But we had to give away the territories that were occupied by the Pakistan previously. That means the areas in the Pakistan occupied Kashmir were given back. The status quo has actually reached. That is Lal Bahadur Shastri doctrine and the Indira Doctrine. So in the Indira Doctrine is the famous because so during the time of the Indira Gandhi, so we have seen the realism. So Nehru Gandhi was an idealist, saying that the India has to prosper. Nehru has actually told in one of the speeches that India is going to be the fourth powerful nation after the USA, Russia, and the China. It is going to be India, but it is Indira Gandhi who has actually done it. That India is going to be the next superpower. So immediately after Indira has actually taken power, so immediately the very first shift has actually come through the India-Soviet Treaty of Peace and Friendship. Why? Because most of the non-aligned countries has actually thought that by default the Soviet will be our ally. By default the Soviet will be ally for all the non-aligned countries, not USA. So India has gone for the India-Soviet Treaty of Peace and Friendship in 1971, and during that particular time, we have another crisis across the border. It is Bangladesh Liberation War. So why the Bangladesh Liberation War has happened, or the why the Bangladesh has actually fought against the Pakistan, why the East Pakistan has fought against the West Pakistan in 1971. So that was the first time where the democratic election was actually held in the Pakistan in 1970. In the democratically elected government, the political party Awami League, the political party based on the East Pakistan, has won with the absolute majority, where the East Pakistan has to form the government, where the Bhutto was not ready to transfer the power, where he sent the military coup to the East Pakistan and killed all the intelligentsia or the people of the Awami League, and they were indiscriminately raped and killed. And this is one of the worst war crimes that are ever committed on the earth. So about 12 million people have actually migrated to India, and precisely to the West Bengal. So during that time, so having 12 million refugees is the financial strain to India, and also the West Bengal is under political strain. So because of all these issues, the Indira Gandhi has gone to different countries to speak about the issue. And at that time, so he has understood that America is actually supporting the Pakistan, because the Pakistan has actually played a very crucial role in forming a coup between the China and as well as America against India. So that's why. So India has ordered the military of Indian military to actually start the preparations to fight against the East Pakistan, to fight against the military which is committing crimes against the East Pakistan people. But it has asked for the military to keep on hold till the winter, so that the China will not actively participate from the north, because during the winters all the mountain passes in the Himalayas will be closed. So that will be the right time for India to actually go for the war, so that India do not have to fight on three fronts, on the east, west and the north. So finally, in the Bangladesh Liberation War, the India has successfully removed the East Pakistan and has West Pakistan and has liberated the East Pakistan into Bangladesh. And so after the Bangladesh Liberation War, we have gone for the Shimla Agreement in 1972. It is very important. Only during the time of Shimla Agreement, the ceasefire line is called line of control, LOC. Ceasefire line, which was initially called the ceasefire line between India and Pakistan, is actually called LOC, the line of control, during the Shimla Agreement. And as per the Shimla Agreement, we have agreed, the India and Pakistan has agreed to resolve the issues through the peaceful bilateral negotiations. Through the peaceful bilateral negotiations. That is Shimla Agreement. And in 1974, the India has become the first nation which is not a signatory of the non-alignment movement to go for the nuclear test. In 1974, Pokhran 1. India has become the first nation to become nuclear. Even though India has said, even though India has gone for the nuclear test, it has declared that it is a peaceful nuclear test. And the other issue which we had during the time of Indira Gandhi is Afghanistan, Russia and USA issue. So the Russia has actually maintained its forces in Afghanistan, and USA wanted to have its dominance in the Afghanistan, and likewise the Russia has actually made the USA leave Vietnam. So it wants to do that Vietnam thing to in the Afghanistan to the Russia. So during that time, the USA asked India for the help to remove the Russia from the power, from the dominance in the Afghanistan. But as the India refused, it has approached the Pakistan, and the Pakistan has readily accepted about $7.5 billion, and as well as the firearms from the America, which the Pakistan has actually used those to weaponize the Mujahideen or the resistance force in the Afghanistan, which eventually led to the terrorism indiscriminately in the Afghanistan. So this is Indira Doctrine. So tomorrow we will be discussing about the Gujral Doctrine as well as P.V. Narasimha Rao Doctrine. So if you have any queries, please put down in the comments below, and please do like, comment, share and subscribe. Thank you. See you.